So, for the people that are experiencing signs of virtual autism, you might be overwhelmed right now as a parent or caregiver and wondering what you can do first. We always recommend calling your pediatrician to rule out any other causes that might be going on with the symptoms that they're sharing. Your pediatrician, as was shared before, may not have heard of this condition, so you might need to be your own advocate for your child. But there is a lot of information out there, and I will be sharing resources later that you could share with your doctor. The pediatrician is also able in the US at least to connect you with early intervention services, and you can have them do a separate evaluation to see if your child qualifies. In many states, these services are free, and I highly recommend parents seek them out and use them. Another reason to contact your pediatrician and early intervention would be that they are able to share community resources for support, as well as activities in the community that are so important for anybody going through this journey, as well as just parents with typical developing children as well. Many parents, while they're waiting for their pediatrician appointment that suspect virtual autism, like myself, went to self-parent screening tools that are found online. Some ones that I recommend, one that pediatricians also use, are called the Modified Checklist for Autism in Toddlers Revised and a Follow-Up. This is called the MCHAT-R. This can be found online at the link below, and I can share that if there's time later. I also highly recommend as a parent, and this tool is not tested in the literature, but has proved valuable for my son as well as many of the clients that I work with, is the ASD, assessment scale and screening questionnaire. And it breaks down the symptoms and core deficits of autism in a rating scale and provides you with a score. And what I did and recommend with this is to retest every 4 to 6 weeks with this tool, and you should be seeing the score dropping with your child. So it has a great data point for parents that want to monitor and look at symptoms overall. One of the biggest things to do when you first suspect that your child might have virtual autism is to check in with yourself. Many parents, as was said before, we don't know better. That was including myself. I knew TV wasn't great, but I needed to use it. I was going through a hard time during this process of a postpartum depression with my youngest son, Max, and had placed him in front of the television just trying to survive. I didn't know any better that the television caused all of these deficits that were talked about earlier in the literature. But when we know better, we can choose to do better. And so that's how I recommend that you would move forward with this. Your wellness is so important. And so finding a team of support is essential. And if that includes a counselor like I had myself, we really recommend that as well. This is also a wonderful message of hope. So if your child did have this background of high screen exposure, due to whatever reason, we find that this protocol is very effective for children that are young, especially under the age of 6. And something else that I did on a daily basis was just affirmations posted around my house when I was working with my child to just uplift me, give me the energy, and remind me of the job that I was doing and how important it was. As you begin this journey, you will need to build your team. You're going to ask yourself who regularly interacts with your child, who is part of their caregiving system of a regular daycare if they go to one, or people that watch them, your partner or the child's father, maybe grandparents, but you're going to want to build your team. This is not all on you. We have also, though, worked with parents who have very little familial resources that are able to do this as well. It just might take a little bit more energy, but when you're determined, you can do this. You would get them on board by first educating yourself, and there'll be resources again that we can give you in the chat and Q&A, but you would educate them, and then I just recommend giving this a 4 to 6 week trial and showing them the data maybe on that parent questionnaire, and also letting them know that they're an important part of your child's life and that you value their presence and how they can help as you move forward. We also look at how to remove screens. This is one of the two most essential parts in this protocol. As soon as you do feel that your child might be affected by virtual autism, or just if your child is showing autism symptoms in general, it never hurts to start decreasing the screen time right away and doing that as you can and see fit. You want to think about the times as you're going through brainstorming on how to decrease and remove screens totally. Where are the times that you use them most? I know for my son, he was not going to eat without the iPad or the tablet in general. And so I had to brainstorm this for a couple of days before we actually removed all screens, meaning how were we going to drive in the car? How was I going to get him into the car seat? How would this look at his daycare or preschool at the time and other times throughout the day? So I had to come up with some ways that we could navigate this as a family with his father. I had to think of also where I was going to hide the things because I had two other older kids and so needed to get the remotes and the devices out of sight and out of mind. My other children were 5 and 7 at the time. And so what this ended up doing, and a lot of our families in the protocol have seen that this kind of decreases everybody's screen time and allows for more interaction, including the child being a greater part, the other siblings being a greater part of that team for their child's wellness. And if your child tantrums, we do find this very normal the first week or two, but then the child's brain and disposition adapt to the higher parent interaction. And so we find that this lasts just a bit, but not too long, possibly a week or two, like I said. We need to also make a plan for our own cell phone use. We know how addicting that it is. For me, I had to put it on silent as vibrate was often too tempting for me to want to look at and just habitual. And so I had to actually put my cell phone in the car. I would just go check it once every hour, sometimes once every 2 hours for about 10 minutes, making sure that I was responding to emails and staying connected to my text messages, but also alerted the main family the importance that I just had to disconnect and be with my son as much as possible. I also made sure at the time that my son was safe and occupied. Sometimes it was just him being in the car seat, having a toy or two, while I was in the front seat of the car, just checking everything and then going back into the house. We also recommend removing all light up toys and music in the background. The light up toys with the sound have been shown in children to use less creativity. They're more directed and to what the child should be doing anyway, pushing buttons, looking at music. They don't allow for the creativity that toys such as blocks do of building and creating something different every time and learning opportunities from the environment and the way that other people interact with the toy. There's also been research that is shared with less parent-child interaction because the toy that is lit up and with sounds is leading and taking control of the child's play. And music has been shown to be a distraction from attention for young children as they can't multitask. They're hearing something that is auditory that doesn't match up with the environment and have more difficulty paying attention to the people and what is happening around them. We want to create an environment of love and joy as we do this protocol. It is so important that you're in a disposition that just shows the importance that your child is to you. Every interaction we try to do with a spirit of love. Your child's interest is the best thing that you have ever experienced, is just kind of a motto that we go with. If your child loves a princess or a certain character from a movie that they've watched, you might hate that movie at this point. But with the screen disconnected, if that's something your child likes and they look at you and enjoy your interest in that as well, you need to pretend that that is the best thing. We'd love to see children smile. It's a way of connection and eye contact, and it's a great starting point to build off of at this time. We want to also talk to them with high affect and a loving voice, encouraging them that they are so important to you and involving the other siblings and people in their life, modeling to them and showing this loving affection and attitude. So For virtual autism intervention, what can you do as you get this environment set up and know, and what can you expect? As I have said before, a good 4 to 6 week trial of this protocol is what is recommended at first. And for older children that are more affected, you might want to even take it to a 12-week period. With younger children and less affected children, we often see that some people can see a difference in 2 to 3 weeks. And so, some things that we have had reported that my son also experienced was a greater environmental awareness that improves over time. Some parents report that their child didn't seem to know that they had a dog or that they had a family pet or weren't involved in a younger sibling's interactions and play with them, and that this greatly improves with this protocol. There is a desire for the child to be closer to you with a heightened sense to follow you. So the parent needs to be ready for that. Some of the children that we see that are representing signs of autism are often aloof and playing by themselves. And so this would be something else to look forward to, that this protocol is working. The social interaction increases with the child, their eye contact increases, and the child may begin to have an increased desire to communicate more with you. We've seen babbling start. If a child already has a word approximations, those word approximations become clearer. And children that have 1 to 2 words maybe start speaking in phrases for things that are important to them. Turn off all screens. You also need to turn up the interactions. Really recommend joining your child. And some of the first ways to do this is to look at their repetitive and stereotypical behaviors that are obviously non-injurious as a way to increase interaction. My son was a spinner. He loved to spin. I had to look and really find out during this protocol, why in the heck does he like to spin so much, and why is he doing this? And what he was doing was spinning with a blanket, looking like a cape and loving to stare at it. I had to find the joy in that and try to act like I was just as excited doing this. And once I did, instead of not including me as part of his stereotypic behavior, he started beginning to want me to do it with him after the screens were removed, bringing a blanket, having to me, wanting me to spin with him. And this eventually changed into a game of Ring Around the Rosie with his siblings and other neighbors that would come over to play. We also added one thing new on to change that stereotypic behavior, a different blanket. We looked at capes. He did just different things to have that same sensory input of looking behind him. But then again, it also then changed into imitation of the activity of Ring Around the Rosie and falling down on the floor and banging and then standing up and doing it again. So it really turned into some functional play, which was fun to watch. We really highly recommend with this protocol to focus on eye contact. I can't stress the importance of that. Even more than first words, parents seem to always be concerned about the words that their child is saying. But with development from birth to 3, first comes attention, and that includes the eye contact. Also, bonding is done through the eye contact and communication as well. The child learns to communicate. There's something in the eye contact that includes the meaning of the speech, which comes before the expression vocally or verbally. So we want to encourage you to hold items to your eyes and then praise your child for looking. If this was a doll that your child had, you'd want to hold it to your eye, have your child look at you, look at the object, and then reward them by praising them. Thank you for looking. That was wonderful. Here's your toy. I love to see your eyes. Give them that feedback so they know why they are getting praised. If your child has a hard time looking at you like that, one of the first ways that a child can more readily look at you is to take their hand while you're interacting with them and wait expectantly as you put it towards your own eyes. Again, giving them that specific feedback for praise. We encourage you to play with your child at a slightly lower level than where they are at in space and proximity to them. This also allows your child to more easily look at you. As a child with autism symptoms, it often looks lower and not up in people's face. We also recommend at any time that you can giving your child a choice of two items that are motivating for them, such as toys to play with, held to your eyes, and giving them that opportunity again to look at you. As you are working with your child, one of the necessary things to do is to play, play, and play some more. As I said before, get at your child's eye level, give them a choice of play. Some parents do include the child's obsessional objects, if that were toy characters and other things. I personally did. Other parents feel that it is too distracting and that they might want to limit those for a time or to just kind of have the child be more interested in them. We want to arrange the environment for proximity and boundaries. If you're in a room with your child, they tend to escape, just shut the door. If they're more likely to stay with you playing at a table and putting them in a high chair, that is another great way, or defining a boundary on the carpet. Choose toys that are motivating to your child, that they like and promote learning and imagination. We talked about blocks earlier. Some cause and effect toys would be great. Instruments, balloons, balls, sensory, truck, toy characters, and even yourself, like wear toys to them as well. We want to also involve our child in everyday routines. It is important with both toy play and in everyday routines that you control the items. You have to maybe think about times of past, as this might not be part of your everyday routine at this time. But how can you involve your child in maybe setting the table? This is something that you do every day. Maybe you've always asked your older kids to help with that, but is that really providing opportunities for your child that has the possible virtual autism to be involved in the routine? And so always had said to myself, well, I don't think my son's able to do this. And I didn't give him the opportunity to do it or teach him. And so I had to start off with holding him while putting down a spoon at the table as we set the table, because without that, he would have run away. So I had to use my body, myself, and safe objects to help him start one at a time with involving in the routine and to his greatest extent possible, which then increased with time. This is a wonderful time to work on following directions. Put down, put down, put down, with the spoon, put in when he was helping me with the laundry. And so there's a lot of one-step directions that can be taken then to 2 and 3 steps as they develop. We highly recommend reading to your child every day. The research shows at least 15 minutes for academic readiness for preschool. We highly recommend reading more than that, 15 minutes 4 times a day, split up. If your child doesn't have that attention span, then 10 minutes 6 times a day, but work up to an hour a day. Reading to your child and controlling the book as you make eye contact with your child and refer back to the book to help them make meaning. You want to allow your child to be part of the routine, turning pages and everything, but reading allows for exposure to concepts that we can't create in our everyday environment, such as outer space or other things of interest, but it also allows for connection and increased vocabulary to the concepts that they do see every day. Maybe you get a book about the grocery store, real items that they're going to see while you shop, and you talk about them and then refer back to the text or to the location as you talk throughout your day about the everyday activities that you do. Outside is of utmost importance. We cannot stress that enough. No environment can replicate that from inside. The human brain has programmed to the outside environment for almost our entire species, and yet our children and ourselves are spending more and more time inside every day. This really helps integrate the senses and helps children with sensitivities to maybe light, temperature, touch get to experience things in the natural environment with some distractions, because there's also a lot of things to look at outside and things that we can't do in the house, such as bikes, scooters, sidewalk chalk, running around, playing games, chasing their siblings, and meeting different peers as in their community. Your community is a valuable resource, and so I really encourage you to seek out times to spend at library story hours if your community has that. A lot of them have typical developing story hours, which are wonderful. So the child has other opportunities to see peers their age and how they act in a typical way. There's also sensory story hours that you can attend. I don't think anything is wrong or right. To just get out there and get involved is the most important. Set up play dates for your child. You're going to need the support as much as your child does with other peers. And so it's always a nice time. I recommend just maybe starting with one child. Sometimes a child that's a little bit younger might be a good fit. Other times a child that's a little bit older might be able to support the play. And I always played on the floor with both children and just encourage the other parent too as well for some of the time. Mommy and daddy opportunities such as swim lessons with your child or other activities, and also just shopping in the community, doing your daily errands is a great thing. Have fun with games, easy games. You don't need to have a lot of toys to do this. Peekaboo is one of the first games our children start to play. Chase, Limbo, Duck, Duck, Goose, some toys that will be linked in the chat and other resources that are from Adorable Human post are Pop Up Pirate, Hungry Hippos, Mr. Mouth. There doesn't have to be any rules at this time. It's just interacting and playing with your child as they increase their attention span, the bonding and the communication. Finger painting with your child, having them cut with toddler scissors. Some of our favorite times were cutting out pretend coupons from the paper. Play-Doh and clay are all good for sensory. We also recommend any therapeutic interventions that you can get be part of your therapy program, as long as that you feel that they are doing a positive service for your child. We would recommend that it would be screen free, of course, and that if you can join to maximize the therapeutic environment by transferring those skills to home. Some therapies that are common in the US are speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, and a social ABA therapy. What can you expect of the future? Well, we know and research shows that intervening as young as possible is important and has the best outcome. But we know that there are still hope for older children, and we've seen this. And so removing the screens and doing the same protocol has hope for all children that are young. Every child is different, so they're going to move forward in their own trajectory at their own pace. And so, really, comparing your child to a different child is not very helpful, but just looking at your child's own progress. And again, some of those parent screener tools are good to show the data, because sometimes as the child continues to develop, we feel like they're not making as much progress. But looking at the data, the developmental milestones are further between, and so they're harder to achieve or take longer. If screens were part of your child's past and your child is showing these symptoms of virtual autism, or even if your child isn't, but you want to start making screens less a part of their life and you more a part of your life, I urge you to consider making this protocol part of your future, as screens are part of your past. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Karen. I do have a question for you. What do you recommend for mothers who work full time and have children in daycare?
Sure. So, all of those recommendations for the parent would be great recommendations for the provider. I'm curious if the parent is going to a child care center or has a home daycare. Those are kind of two different things where you might have more flexibility in one setting than the other. You never really know. And so we do know as a whole that quality childcare providing makes a huge difference in a child's life. Again, education is important to the provider of the care and letting them know the why behind this, because they're often unfamiliar with the screen recommendations for young children and how they affect their development. What we do often find, though, is that when the provider is aware, that they're more open to changing, because most providers that are providing services for daycare and childcare are in it for the children. This is a high demand, like lots of demanding pressure to watch children. And it's also one of the careers that pay the littlest. So they're usually in it for the heart. And when we educate the parents and you tell them what you're doing at home, they're going to actually start seeing the improvements.
What was one of your affirmations that you used to post up?
So I have a high faith. A lot of them were biblical quotes to just uplift me, remembering that I'm not alone. But others were quotes that were just from friends and family that, like, your presence is important to Max. We love you. We love Max. You're doing this for his wellness. Like, I would sometimes have some of my friends write ones to me because I was kind of caught up in this journey of getting him better. And I would talk about this a lot. And so it was really nice, though, that they would see the improvements too over time as we went to their houses and everything. Oh my gosh, Max is not pulling my drapes off anymore, pretending they're capes. He's able to sit with us at the table, And so it was really, some of those were very personal, but things that I just put, it's a door open. Okay, like for the cabinet, great. Saw that, back to work.
I have another question. The child goes to daycare, but the moment the child gets home, they want to watch TV and they get upset when they can't watch TV. So
Mhm,
just real quick, talk about how you distract the child from getting them past the TV urge.
mhm. And so what I had to do was just in my head say the television was not an option. We didn't have a television, like basically it was not there. What was I going to do? This is part of navigating that plan. So some of the things that Max liked to do was play with beans and trains in a sensory bin. Those are some of my best recommendations that I have at first is to create a bin of things that are safe, dried noodles that are maybe dyed. You don't even have to dye them, but put some of their favorite things to play with in there. Sit with them on the floor, maybe a snack, but a lot of distraction. Reading was one of the things that we did for him eating. So just really, like I said, this time is uncomfortable. It is not preferable to see your child cry or tantrum. And yet we do find that it does not last very long, a week or two max.
What do you talk to other parents about? How does a person who understands what you're saying talk to their peers, other parents, without seeming or feeling judgy? I mean, some of these friends could actually, their kids could be right there showing these symptoms. How in the world do you begin to broach the subject?
Sharing in a way that is out of love and concern. If your journey relates to one that parent might be facing, that compassionate piece of it, like I'm sharing out of what I did not know. I'm not saying that this is a problem for you, but I was not aware. And so I just want to make you aware. And then I just also like that quote again, knowledge is power. The person can share some of that because I just think many parents do not know and it's accidental. And I know at the time, I believe I would have been very open to anything. At that time, I was like at the end of my rope with my son, not understanding what was going on and why he was changing so fast before my eyes. So I would have been open to anything. And I think a lot of parents, some people are scared to share, and so they don't. But the parents that I've shared with have been pretty open to hearing it. And you can kind of tell within the first minute or two how much farther you can go.
What do you think are some ways to raise awareness in the medical community, just in general?
Parents sharing and physicians seeing the child's improvement has been powerful. I have many families contacting me at the beginning of their journey saying my clinician, my therapist knew nothing about this. I'm having to educate them. They're quite skeptical, but I believe in it and I see that it's changing my child. And then they might go back to the pediatrician 3 months later, or after several weeks, the therapist starts noticing, gosh, your child's like changing for the positive. They're like now doing these gestures and they had no words or anything before. They weren't even looking at me. What's happening? And then they're like, oh, yeah, well, remember, like I removed the screens and I told you about this. And they're like, oh, So they start getting interested in learning more. The same thing with the pediatricians. We have many of moms, especially that I am familiar with, that have been great resources for clinicians believing, seeing is believing with this and really educating, because when you educate a clinician or a therapist, you have a ripple effect and you're educating beyond just your child.
Do you find therapists to be receptive to the idea of screens as a causal issue? Those people folks go to when their kids need services.
I think their background and their own feelings about autism greatly impact how they receive the message. So again, parents advocating and just educating is a big piece of this. And then once the parent does that, like I said, if the parent keeps the screens off and continues to interact with the child and sees that the therapy is valuable, that the service provider is giving them, which it usually always is, it works with this protocol in tandem, the child starts having these dramatic improvements. The therapist feels amazing because, wow, they're doing a great job. When the therapist asks, wow, I can't believe how well your child's doing. Thank you for working with my child and doing all my therapy that I'm recommending. And the parent then says back, yeah, it's so effective because I've removed the screens and I get more time to interact with them. It's a win-win. And I think like seeing is believing again. And so even if they don't believe in it at first, a lot of therapists then get an interest and are like, wow, like this is amazing. I've had a lot of therapists not believe in it at first, and then a year or two later say, like, yeah, this something's on it.
I've been following this story for 6 years now, more than 6 years. And it's been concerning to me personally as a mom and grandmother. And I have been frustrated because it hasn't gotten out. It's like, what? Why isn't this making traction? So it's pushed me to become more going from reporting to actually to advocating.
Jennifer, can I add one thing about your website, Durable Human?
Sure.
I know a lot of people are watching that are possibly parents of a child that could be affected, that just want to hear more testimonies. I'd like to point out the post that you have if a person would Google durable human and virtual autism. Am I right that you have several, I mean, not several, hundreds, maybe close to 500 at now,
Yeah,
comments of
600.
parents, 600
Yeah.
that have been trying this over
Mhm.
these past years with amazing success and supporting each other?
Yeah.
Because it does take that village, and some people have more resources than others as far as interpersonal connections. But there
Mhm.
are a lot of groups out there too to help, and a lot of, chats about this. And I just have always pointed parents to that as a valuable tool to just kind of see as they prepare for this journey.
Mhm. And this, the post that Lori's talking about actually links to Lori's talks that she's had too, which have been very helpful. And also there's another mom who has her own post on virtual autism and talks about her 18 months old son and how she brought him back. And now he's doing wonderfully well. If you happen to be in the throes of a problem with your child and you want to help, the private WhatsApp group exists that you can join too.